The gods don't always strike you down. Sometimes they let you become the punishment. In Greek mythology, few curses are more disturbing than the story of Erysichthon, because this is not a story about a hero losing a battle. It's about a man who offended a goddess and was left to collapse from the inside out. Erysichthon was a king of Thessaly, and unlike the usual fools in Greek myth, he wasn't reckless because he was emotional. He was reckless because he was arrogant. He believed the gods, their shrines, and their sacred spaces meant nothing. That mattered for one reason. Demeter, the goddess of harvest, fertility, and the life-giving order of the earth, had a sacred grove. And Erysichthon decided he wanted the wood, not for survival, not for war, not because his people were freezing or starving. He wanted it so he could build himself a grand feasting hall. That detail is what makes the story feel so brutal. He desecrates the goddess of nourishment to build a monument to indulgence, even an ancient myth that is almost asking for a curse. So he marched into Demeter's sacred grove with men and axes. And in some versions, there was one giant tree at the center, covered in offerings, garlands, and signs of answered prayers. It wasn't just a tree. It was sacred space made visible. And still, Erysichthon ordered it cut down. Some of his men hesitated. They understood what he was doing. They knew this wasn't lumber. This was an insult aimed directly at a goddess. But Erysichthon didn't care. In Ovid's version, when others resisted, he grabbed the axe himself and attacked the tree personally. And the story gets eerie fast. The tree groans, shudders, and even bleeds, as if the natural world itself is crying out against it. That is the turning point, because Greek myths love this moment. When a person crosses the line, sees the warning, and keeps going anyway. Erysichthon is not ignorant. He is defiant, and Demeter notices. In one tradition, she first appears disguised as a priestess and tells him to stop. He threatens her too. That's when the disguise drops and the warning becomes judgment. But Demeter does not blast him with lightning. She does something colder, something more creative. She gives him a punishment that mirrors the crime. He violated the goddess of plenty, so she takes plenty away forever. Demeter sends hunger itself, not just the feeling of being hungry, but a literal embodiment of starvation, called fames in Ovid and associated with limos in Greek tradition. This is not ordinary appetite. This is cosmic deprivation. In Ovid's telling, hunger comes to him while he sleeps. She breathes herself into his mouth, his throat, and his lungs. And when he wakes up, the man is no longer just hungry. He has become a bottomless pit. Think about how terrifying that is. Your body still works. Your hands still move. Food is still in front of you. But satisfaction is gone. Forever. So Erysichthon eats. And eats. And eats. The sources describe him consuming enormous amounts while only growing more desperate. The more food he gets, the worse the emptiness becomes. That is what makes the curse feel so modern, honestly. It is excess without relief. Consumption without reward. Need with no finish line. Soon, his household turns into a feeding machine. In Callimachus' version, huge numbers of servants are needed just to prepare his food and wine. But no matter how much they bring him, it changes nothing. And then comes the humiliation. Because divine punishment in Greek myth is rarely just pain. It is exposure. It strips away status. It makes your ruin visible. Erysichthon was a king, a rich man, a man who thought sacred things could be chopped down for a bigger dining room. Now all of his wealth starts disappearing into his own stomach. His table's empty. His animals are consumed. His stores vanish. In Callimachus, the destruction is so severe that even the household beasts are eaten. In Ovid, the curse devours his ancestral wealth until almost nothing remains. And still he is starving. That is the true horror of the myth. There is no moment where he learns, apologizes, and gets better. Greek myths can be merciless like that. Then the story takes another dark turn. When his fortune is gone, one thing is left: his daughter, Mestra. And Erysichthon does what only a fully broken man would do. He sells her. That detail matters because it shows the curse is no longer only consuming his body. It is consuming every human bond around him. Hunger has eaten his dignity, his wealth, and now his family. But Mestra's part of the myth is strange and important. According to the tradition preserved in Ovid, Poseidon had given her the power to shapeshift. So after being sold, she escapes by changing form. Sometimes she becomes a fisherman, and in later retellings, she takes other forms too, like animals, to flee her captors. And what does Erysichthon do when he realizes this? Does he repent? Does he see what he has become? No, he uses her gift as part of the cycle. He keeps selling her again and again to buy more food. That may be the ugliest part of the story, because by then, the curse has revealed his final form. He is not just starving. He's become a machine that converts love, family, and human life into fuel. And still, it is not enough. Eventually, there is nothing left to sell. No grain, no livestock, no treasure, no dignity, no future. Only the hunger remains. So the story reaches its final image, one of the most grotesque in ancient mythology. Unable to feed the curse any other way, Erysichthon begins to feed on himself. In Ovid's version, he gnaws at his own body until his own flesh becomes the meal. Other summaries of the tradition describe him literally eating himself alive. And that is why this myth sticks with people. Because Demeter never needed a thunderbolt. She never needed to turn him into ash. She simply gave him a desire that could never be satisfied and let that desire finish the job. That is a very Greek kind of punishment. Not random, not meaningless, perfectly fitted to the crime. He cut down the sacred source of abundance. So abundance became unreachable. He wanted a hall for endless feasting. So he got endless appetite instead. He treated the world as something to consume. And in the end, consumption consumed him. That is why the myth is more than shock value. It is a warning about arrogance, disrespect, and appetite without limits. It asks a brutal question. What happens when wanting more becomes the center of who you are? For Erysichthon, the answer was simple. The gods didn't kill him. They made sure he could never stop feeding the thing that was killing him. And that may be worse.